I really appreciate it. Oh, and Tuesday night is my home group night, and I was sitting over there tonight because our meeting starts at 6:30, and we go over there a little bit about 20 till 6, and we set up the room and we visit and we talk and laugh and cut up and eat cookies mostly, and I had that nagging feeling. Seems like there's something I need to be doing. So, got to be about 5 minutes to 6, and I went, oh my God, so let me get rid of that. So, I jumped in the car and fortunately my home group, we started a meeting about two and a half years ago. It's about 5 minutes from my house. So that worked out. And so I got here in time, and I'm so glad that, I'm so honored. I'm so glad. I'm so humbled that I get to be invited to be with y'all this evening. What a great thing. What a great thing y'all have been doing for a real long time. And it's powerful. And, step 11, I'll just dive right in. Let's see. My name is Marty Ruby. I'm from Buda, Texas. That's about 23 miles south of Austin. And, we don't like to be confused with Austin, but that's okay. And, but nobody knows where Buda, Texas is. And so, I have a home group, as you found out, the great fact right here in Buda, Texas. And, I have a sponsor, and, she has a sponsor, and I sponsor people who sponsor people. And that's the way this thing works. I can read the book all day long, and I have, but really when the book comes to life for me is when I read it with someone else. And I know that, coming into a meeting like this is like preaching to the choir. You can be, it can get a little intimidating because y'all know. I mean, what am I going to tell you that y'all don't already know? But I might just do it with a different accent than what y'all got. But I see y'all are from all over the country and maybe even the world. My God. I mean, Canada, the world. So, what a big deal. So, anyway, so I have let me see if I got my deets right. Okay. I have a sobriety date of October the 19th of 1989. And I'm as grateful as I know how to be about that. Sometimes you get these whippersnappers these days and they say, how long have you been sober? And I can say, sugar, I've been sober longer than you've been alive. And they like, that's not possible. You're like, oh, but it is. And, like everybody else, I didn't come here, expecting that to happen. I didn't come here expecting that to happen. I didn't come here expecting to have prayer and meditation be a part of my daily life. I wasn't looking for any of that. I don't think anybody who crashes through the doors, because we do crash through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, is looking for that either. So it's no, and I'd love to tell you that the way I got into the 11th step is I went 1 through 12. I whipped through them in, the 30 days that we talk about all the time or however long. And I was so fired up, just like the spiritual experience, that, I had this personality change sufficient to overcome alcohol, just lit up on fire. And I was as on fire as I could be at that time. And, when you see the new kids come in and you see it, and I think back on what I was like back then, I'm like, mercy sakes alive. How did this ever work? But thank God it does. And so, the sentence I'm supposed to talk about tonight is, after making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. Now, I got to tell you, I had some religious teaching when I was a kid, and it left me cold and flat and, uninspired and frightened, frankly, of a God of whatever understanding those people had. And so I didn't really have much use for a God of anybody's understanding for a long, long time until I'd gotten beaten into a state of reasonableness, as we like to talk about. And so when I was reading this, when I got to this part of the book, the part that stuck out for me more than anything was, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. And the only thing I heard in that sentence was, I'm doing it all wrong, and I'm never going to be good enough. And that's basically what what my spiritual life consisted of at that time. So I didn't do this part. I didn't do this part for a long time. You know, and I know you're not supposed to get up here, especially in the Bronx Big Book group, and admit that. But I'm going to tell you, that's exactly what I was like. Like, you know what? Keep your forgiveness, keep your corrective measures, and I'll just be over here because I'm doing cafeteria style. Thank you very much. Thank you for the information, fellas. I'll take it from here. You know, that whole kind of attitude like that. And, cause I was scared and I didn't know what to do. Right. So after, you know, getting the kind of sponsor that wasn't going to, take the, you know, doing only 11 steps instead of 12, for a reasonable answer to my AA program, you know, I got to really, begin to pay attention to this part of the book, to this actual step. You know, that my husband likes to talk about the fact that, you know, his spiritual life consisted of having the 24-hour-a-day book on the back of the toilet. He'd read the reading for the day and he'd say, thank you, God. See you later. See you tomorrow. You know, and I get that. I get that. And I've done that. And, I'm glad to tell you my life does not look like that today. And I was talking to my sponsor, a couple of years ago, and, you know, and I'd been heavy into the prayer and the meditation, and you know what, just like it talks about, on page 87, I'm kind of jumping around, that it says, it's not probable we're going to be inspired at all times. So I called her up and I was going to hit her with some really good stuff. You know what I mean? And I said, you know, I'm feeling really uninspired. And she goes, uninspired? What does that look like? So I said, you know, I just can't seem to pray and meditate. She goes, that's not uninspired. That's undisciplined. And I went, oh, you know what I mean? And she was spot on. She was absolutely spot on. Prayer and meditation is not about how I feel. It's not. And of course, like they like to say around here, I like to feel my feelings very feelingly. Right. And so, you know, I wanted to feel like when I sat down that I was going to be showered with the sunlight of the Spirit, and every minute that I sat down was going to be rainbows and unicorns and a big, huge experience. And that is not my experience with prayer and meditation. And when I began to look at it as a discipline, an act of discipline, just as though, any other kind of discipline we have in our life, which frankly, I don't have a whole lot of, but looking at it as the discipline that it is instead of the inspiration that I think it should be. It's a practice. It's a practice. Prayer and meditation is a practice. So I got to reconsider what this whole paragraph on page 86 means. And instead of, you know, I thought what I was supposed to do when I read this paragraph and I'm constructively reviewing my day, you know, I'm looking at all the ways I screwed up during the day. And it was another way for me to feel bad about myself, you know, and, while I enjoy feeling bad about myself, I must, because I do it all the time. I'll be doggone if somebody else is going to tell me to feel bad about myself. You know what I mean? And so it felt like a checklist where I was just, oh, yep, you're no good. You wrecked another day and da. And then when I began to look at it from this angle, and instead of saying, were we resentful? Because it's the 11 steps sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God, I began to ask God, where was I resentful? Show me how I was resentful today. And it became a conversation. Right? It became guidance. It became something what felt to me, feelingly, as a demonstration of love, both from me and for me. So I began to look at what God showed me where I was resentful. God showed me where I was selfish. And I sit and I pause and I wait until I feel inspired. Or not sometimes. Y'all, come on. Sometimes it's real obvious. You know what I mean? But I'm looking for that nudge from God on all of these questions. And here's the thing. If I'm writing the same thing 4 days in a row, I don't think I'm seeking very hard. I don't think I'm searching, nor do I think I'm very fearless, right? So it's a moment where, it's a practice where I get to try to go really deep and try to get really honest with myself. And answer all these questions. So once I've answered these questions with God's help, right? What I began to understand is after making my review, I ask God's forgiveness, not forgiveness for being resentful, not forgiveness for being selfish or dishonest. That's not what I'm asking forgiveness for. What I'm asked, because when I look at all the writing to all these questions, because I'm writing the answers down. When I'm looking at the answers to all these questions, what I recognize so intently is that all of these things have separated me from God that day. And what I'm asking for forgiveness for is my separation. Because it's my belief, the God of my understanding wants nothing more for me than for me to be close to God and perform his works well. If I'm busy being resentful, selfish, dishonest, afraid, keeping something to myself, which means I'm just being a liar and doing all these things and hustling and shicking and all the things, y'all, how can I be anything but separate from God? And once I'm separate from God, it's easy to be a liar, isn't it? Once I'm separate from God, it's easy to think really crummy things about you and how that, and all the other things that go with when I'm separated from God. So I'm asking God's forgiveness, and I'm inquiring what corrective measures I want God to give me. Not another way for me to be in self-will and think of how I'm going to make myself better, right? I want to know what God has to say about those corrective measures. And in this way, this whole retiring at night thing is this incredible prayer. And doing this on a consistent basis. I would love to tell you I do it 365 days a year, 7 days a week, never miss a day. Well, I'd love to tell you that, but I'd be lying, But I can tell you this, I do it most days. And as a result, my life has changed dramatically. Because when it talks about that personality change sufficient to overcome alcoholism, y'all, I hope you continue to change and change and change and change and change. Somebody said the other day that they'd been married about 20 plus years and they'd known about 5 versions of their wife. And I thought, that is a beautiful way to say that. I've been married with Cecil almost 30 years. Boy, I've seen him reinvent himself 25 times. And I'm sure he could say the same thing about me, and isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful as we develop more God consciousness, as I begin to understand what it is, when it talks about who knew that humility was something I'd actually desire? Who knew that honesty should be a value? Go figure. Right? All of these things. How about practicing spiritual principles being something I really, really want to do in my life? Really? And I know if you're just here to stop drinking, you're just like, oh, please tell me that's not what we're doing here. Well, it is what we're doing here. That's exactly what we're doing here. Sufficient to overcome alcoholism. So I got pretty excited when I heard y'all say that the 12 and 12 can be, used as well in this meeting, because I'm a big fan. Maybe it's not popular to say I'm a big fan of the 12 and 12, but I think it's great writing. On page 98, Bill talks about there's a direct linkage among self-examination, meditation, and prayer. Taken separately, these practices can bring much relief and benefit, right? But when they're logically related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. Now, I'm all about relief and benefit because that's all about me, right? Oh, I feel so much better and I got good things, relief and benefit. But you know what I have found in Alcoholics Anonymous so beautifully, so remarkably, so wondrously is change, is transformation. I can tell you that the woman who sits here and talks to you tonight has almost nothing to do with the woman who walked in here 35 years ago. Thank God. Now, am I still neurotic? You better believe it. As neurotic as an inbred poodle, as we like to say around here. And yet going from this child who had no desire for any relationship with a God of no understanding to someone who makes that one of the most important values in her life, if not the most important value of her life, is nothing short of transformation. Absolute transformation. And I have to put in a plug for, when Bill talks about the sudden and profound experience of a God of his understanding, I used to think that my experience was one of the educational variety as well. But then I realized one day I could not drink. And then the next day I could. I had the power to not drink. That for me is absolutely sudden and profound. And if you've had that experience, it is for you too. Think about it. What do you mean I'm not drinking? That's huge. And I don't ever want to lose sight of the fact that really what we're doing here is a life and death errand. And that if without Alcoholics Anonymous and the God of my understanding and all of you folks, I'm going to drink myself to death. To death. And let me tell you, we all know that's pretty grisly. So I don't know when I started talking, and I don't really know how long I'm supposed to talk. Anybody got a hint? I can either stop talking or I can keep talking.
You got 17 more minutes, Marty.
17 more minutes. Okay. Thank you very much. I think a lot of my story has been when it talks about on page 97, in the 12 and 12, when we turn away from meditation and prayer, we likewise deprive our minds, our emotions, and our intuitions of vitally needed support. Right? And yet I will go like this. You know what? I'm too busy. I'm too busy. You know what? I'm busy. I'm tired. I'm whatever. And if we just think about our emotions, vitally needed support, who doesn't love to be supported? And to think in terms of the fact that with a little prayer and a little meditation, I'm going to get vitally needed support. And all throughout my day, not just when I am praying and meditating. It carries over. It's this wonderful, wonderful experience for me. I'm thinking about, of course, just a minute here. I didn't realize I had 17 minutes. That's all right. Okay. So when it talks about on the bottom of page 101, let's always remember that meditation is in reality intensely practical. And one of the first fruits is emotional balance. Okay. I remember I asked my sponsor, who's been sober over 40 years, and I said, what is the greatest thing for you about being sober for 40 plus years? And she thought for just a few minutes, and she said, peace of mind. And I love that she said that. And it wasn't, oh, my children or my relationship, oh, blah, 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 self-esteem. It wasn't any of those things. It was peace of mind. And for someone like me whose mind can chatter all the time. Now, I know y'all are probably all walking around. We go to Bronx Big Book all the time. So we're just zen as fire. That's great. But like, I got a squirrel cage that likes to run all the time. All the time. What do you think about me? Were you thinking about me? What do you mean you weren't thinking about me? Oh my, just ticker tape, ticker tape, ticker tape. But with a steady prayer and meditation practice, I can have emotional balance. It says with the emotional balance, I can then broaden and deepen the channel between myself and God as I understand him. Broaden the channel. And of course, the 11th step in the 12 and 12 is all about the St. Francis prayer. What if we really do try to become a channel of peace for one another, right? What if we actually considered that, prayed on that, and began to want that and then develop it with God's help? This is a game changer. But, but I'm lazy. I'm spoiled, and I'm self-indulgent. I'd love to tell you I'm none of those things because, been so for a long time. But no, that's not true. Remember, it talks about self-examination, self-awareness, that we can begin to have these things. And, yeah. So, full character defects. And, yeah. So, so all of that means like, I'll go, and let me tell you, if I actually look at my phone for 1 second before I go into prayer meditation in the morning, I'm dead in the water. I'm dead in the water, right? Because I'm going to find some reason to look at something, whether someone texted me during the night, there was a call I didn't return, whatever it's going to be, I'm dead in the water. So I challenge you to not look at your phone before you talk to God. I love that it goes on to say on page 102, we ask simply throughout the day that God place us in the best understanding of his will that we can have for that day, and that we be given the grace by which we may carry it out. And I think of the prayer by Thomas Merton, big fan, that says, God, I don't know if I'm doing your will, but I hope that my desire to do so pleases you. I can't figure, I don't know. I don't claim to have a direct line to God. Some people do. And if you got one, right on, right? I'm just, that's just not my understanding. And if it's yours, bravo. And if it's yours, like if you've got a God that gets you a parking spot, I am so jealous, right? Dang it. I just don't have that. It's okay. And both of them work. All of them work. If you're sitting here not drinking, it works, right? So we're just asking simply throughout the day that God places us in the best understanding of his will that we can have for that day, knowing that my transformation continues with each day, with each prayer, with each breath. It's by the time I get to the 11th step, it says, we can pause where situations must be met and decisions made, and renew that simple request, thy will, not mine, be done. I remember, and some of you probably heard me say this before, that I used to think that pausing meant I was just pausing to reload, and, that's not what it means. It's pausing and asking for God's help one more time. And, it's so exquisite that we have this in the 11th step, that we've done all of this work to have this contact with a God of our understanding, that then gives us the power to pause with enough self-examination, with enough continuation, with all of these things, that we can actually pause and ask and remind ourselves we're no longer running the show, and then say, God, thy will, not mine, be done. So, yeah. I think I could go on and on and on, but I really want to hear what y'all have to say. Can we do that? Thanks, y'all.
I really And thank you for skipping out on your home group to be with us. So I got a lot out of that, folks. I'd love to see hands come up. Marty talked about, God show me where I am in relationship to these 10 questions. That if you're given the same answers every day, you're certainly not trying real hard, and that you answer the questions with God's help. And that when we ask for forgiveness, not for the trespasses against people, but for being out of alignment, right? For being separate. And it's right. When we're separate, it's easy to be all those things. What a great talk. Hands. I'm waiting for hands. I can see people, though. I'll call on you. I'm known to do that. Okay, I'm going to start off with the question, Marty. Marty, I know that you talked about this separation and how when we're separated, it's easy for us to be all these things. But it's also not possible to be connected all the time. Like, what's your experience at the stage of recovery that you're in now with being separated? And when you're separated, how do you find your way back?
What a great question. It's a real poser. I hadn't really considered it in that fashion. I think that anytime I'm separated, that's self-will, right? I don't think with the God of my understanding, it's not possible for me to be separated. It's not possible. The God I believe in wouldn't do that to me, would not leave me, would not abandon me. Do I feel abandoned? You bet, right? Do I feel, do I feelingly feel that, of course I'm going to get angry, resentful, and dishonest, all the things, and those are the separations. They're conscious decisions to separate because, you can even compare it to like intimacy. Like I love my husband, but sometimes he needs to go in the other room. You know what I mean? I need you to stop talking. I just need to sit on the porch. Okay? Sweet darling. But there's only so much I can take at a time. And I think the same holds true for a God of my understanding. I can only take so much at a time. But when I can, when I get to that place, which usually involves a little pain, a little resentment, a little fear, a little, a little, don't you like that? Just a little bit, just a little resentment, that I can always remember because I've had enough experience as long as I've been sober to, remember that God has not gone anywhere. I'm the one who's done the moving. So I just, get my pen, hit my knees, call someone who I think, needs to talk. All of the things that we're taught to do from the very beginning, none of that changes. None of that changes. We get better at it, right? It becomes more of a natural tool instead of something like, what do I do now? What do I do now? It's like, I know what to do. I know what to do. And then I have to actually do it. It's not enough to know what to do. It requires action. This program of action. I think that might answer your question.
Thank you, Marty. We've got 4 hands. We've got 20 minutes. We can probably fit another couple people in, and I don't know where the guys are, but Rima, you are up.
Thanks, Olas, and thanks for booking Marty. It's just, my name's Rima. I'm an alcoholic, and I'm so grateful to you and your share tonight, Marty. I did not know you were speaking, and I showed up here with a sponsee tonight. I love that your recovery has touched so many lives and that we are here. Your great, grand sponsee is here tonight. I mean, that is just beautiful. And my question, let me get to the point here. I'm sorry to waste people's time, but I adore you. Is about that neurosis. I was just talking to my sponsor today about that ticker tape. And your practice throughout the day in 10 that is just requires me at least vigilance and staying on top of how far I'm drifting, how long I'm drifting. and your talk about your sponsors, peace of mind. There's so much hope there. How could you speak more on that?
On being neurotic?
On watching throughout the day, asking God, turning to God to come back present.
In those moments of, for me, it's, what happens for me is I can feel myself vibrating almost, you know what I mean? Like I become very conscious of the difference between peace of mind and not, right? If vibration is all I know, because I've never had peace of mind, how would I be able to identify when I'm in it? Because I'm always in it, if that makes any sense. So once I've had that experience of true peace of mind, I go, oh, and yet I can still value the neurosis, the anxiety. I had a great experience with it today, right? Big work project, right? Who cares? I mean, like I have this big work project and I want to get filled with my own self-importance, right? And about making deadlines. I got so much pride about hitting my deadline. I've only missed one deadline in my whole life, my whole professional life, because I got so much pride, so much ego, so much, all of this stuff. Those aren't going to go away. The best I'm ever going to become as a human being, right? Right now, but when I got here, I was an animal, but the best, I'm going to have a human experience. That's what I'm shooting for. So yeah, I'm going to get anxious. I'm going to get boastful. I'm going to become prideful. I'm going to get all the things. But when I start to feel that vibration, I go, And sometimes I go, you know what? I'm choosing self-importance today. Do you know how busy I am? I can't talk to you right now. I'm so busy. Are you really? Really? Now I get it. It takes 20 minutes to get back into I know all the studies, right? Because I need to know. I like data. And, but, that vibrational feeling of self-importance or anxiety or neurosis, whatever you want to call it, whatever it means to you. I have so many body cues today that I can listen to, that remind me to turn back to God, turn back to God, turn back to God. God's going to make it happen. No. What's the worst thing that can happen? Somebody's going to say, oh, I'll have to ask for an extension on my project, which will be promptly granted. but woo. So I got this going all the time. I don't know if that addresses your question, but listening to body cues that remind me to go back to my creator.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Sure. Love you.
Kate, you are up next. Please come in.
Hi, I'm Kate. I'm alcoholic. Thanks for your share, Marty. I got so much out of it. Even just your voice of the emotional sobriety, I can just hear it. And so, I love that you touched on, writing the same thing over and over again. And you said that we're not seeking deep enough. And so while asking for God's guidance, how do you seek in a different way for more clarity?
I don't know that I seek a different way, but I think there's a difference between checking a box for me and really truly listening. Like like I said, been married forever. So when he comes in and starts to talk, sometimes I'm like, and I'm not really listening. Anybody have that experience? So, I'm not truly listening. And so, if I am seeking God, am I truly listening? And I'd love to say that I have, the heavens open up and the angels sing and all of these things happen for me every single day. They don't. Sometimes it sounds like this, like the old TVs, remember? And I'm just like, And I'll, wait for it. I'm like, I'm not hearing anything, I'll try the next question. But I do try to, sometimes they're pretty obvious. I don't need God to give me direction. I'm like, you remember when you were, a complete jerk yesterday? Yeah, why, yes, I do. And so those are pretty clear, but I can, just looking for that inspiration. I'm looking for that connection, which involves truly listening.
Thank you, Marty.
Sure.
Marcy, you are up next.
Macy Alcoholic.
Thanks, Macy.
Thanks, yes.
Hey, Marty. Thank you for your share. So my question is, do you think it's imperative to write your nightly? Or do you think it's, just reading the questions and having that conversation with God?
You know what? I'll tell you, for me, the practice is writing. And I also date the writing for the day. And the reason I do that is because the way I operate is I think, well, I missed, 2 days, whether I was traveling or whatever, so busy at work, so self-important. And then when I look at my book, my same notebook that I write in, it's been 5 days. It's been 9 days. You know what I mean? And you're just like, oh, right. No wonder I'm taking people's heads off in the grocery store. And so it's just, there's something that happens between the brain and the pen. There's just something that happens. My thinking has to slow down. My spirit has to slow down. It's really important for me it really enables me to be in the moment and be connected and be very present for what I'm doing. So that's why I write it out.
Thank you, Marty.
Sure.
Laura, you're up.
Hi, thank you, Alice. My name is Laura, and I'm a recovered alcoholic. Marty, thank you so much for sharing tonight. Can you please give me an example of what your morning practice looks like?
Oh, sure. Well, I sit down. Okay. I'm the kind of person, I can't drive to work the same way every day. Like I got a sponsee. She's been sober 30 years. She has done the exact same thing every morning for 30 years. That makes me want to cut my throat. Okay. I just, for whatever reason, we're very different. Hers is very, very effective. So I like to, so I love to read as Bill sees it. I start off with that. I have a Thomas Merton daily reader that I really love. Sometimes I'll read something out of the Tao. Sometimes I'll read, whatever seems to have caught my fancy for a minute. I'll have some kind of, interesting reading that is new to me, right? And just to experience something new. And so then I'll get into the 86 to 88, the 11th step. And then, I'll answer the questions. I'm saying the prayers. And then on page 87, when it says we usually conclude the period of meditation right before that paragraph, that's when I meditate. Right? Whatever that looks like. And I'd love to tell you, sometimes all I can muster up is 5 minutes. Sometimes I can do 25 minutes, and so that's when I meditate. And then once I come out of meditation, then I read the rest of go back through 87 and finish 88. And that's, that takes me, I like to spend a lot of time with it. Sometimes I love to read Mary Oliver poetry, and sometimes I'll book in it with that. I live on a beautiful piece of property out here in Texas, and sometimes I do it out in the yard. And it's just, like I said, if you find something that works, do it. And if it doesn't work, do something different. Try something else. It's this is my framework. Find one that works for you. This one for me is superb. Is this great frame, and I can hang all kind of decorations on that frame. Thomas Merton. Some people are real big fans of Anna Fox, or whoever grabs your fancy. and try to be with that. That's what mine looks like anyway.
Thank you, Marty. Ken,
Sure.
thank you for diversifying the gender mix of questions. Come on in.
And Ken.
It's an honor. Thank you. I'm Ken. I'm an alcoholic. Team, thank you for what you bring to us each Tuesday night. This meeting has been really crucial for me and really helped me at a time I needed it to help me. So thank you. Marty, I'm so glad you talked about your process with Pages with When We Retire at Night.
Mm-hmm.
I had the same process that my first attempts, meaning I had one attempt and then I couldn't sleep at night because I thought of how bad I am. And then I decided that's the way it's going to be. So I'll never do that practice, meaning fear. And then what I heard you talk about tonight is my transformation continues with each day, with each prayer, with each breath, I think you said. And that was beautiful. So I've connected those. And by the way, in my year of being at this meeting, even though I talk so much in other meetings, I've never asked a question here. And so what am I experiencing? Fear right now. So I'm getting rid of it. And thank you all. Here's my question, I think. You talked about your husband and you talked about you and you talked about somebody else and their husband reinventing themselves about 25 times. And what I thought you were going to say is because of your practice connecting with God, your husband became a new person in your eyes, in your mind. And I see it both ways and I see it always, but I'm curious whether when you're connected with God, do the people in your life change because you're seeing people in a different way? Thanks for letting me share and ask questions.
Thank you, Ken.
What a great question, Ken. Thank you. And bravo for asking a question. Good job. That's a great way to look at it. That goes back to folks were talking about, please give Cecil a new wife and let it be me. And so, I think with God, with being connected to God for sure, I see the whole world differently. The whole world looks different to me. So of course the people in it are going to look different too. And you can talk about attitude. I have an entirely different attitude when I'm connected to a God of my understanding than I do when I don't. Right? It's real hard to be a nihilist, which I kind of enjoy, when I'm connected to God, because, so let me stick with your question before I get way off. And, I think both. I see him differently and I think that's made possible because I am different. That's the short answer. Great question.
Thank you, Marty. Marissa, please come in.
Hi, everyone. Marissa May, alcoholic. And Marty, thank you so much for coming today and sharing with us. I have a question about when you said, I want to broaden and deepen the channel. And I'm just curious, I've never heard it put that way of broadening and deepening. How has the concept of broad and deep change your concept of being a channel versus being a broad and deep channel? Where did that come from? Yes.
Well, initially I kind of looked at the channel as kind of a straw, that the connection was about the width of a straw. And then, I also have family from Louisiana. We come, my people, as we like to say, come from that part of the country. And over there, they have lots of channels. And like the intercoastal waterway is a channel. And it's huge. It's so big that ships fit in it, right? And so what if my concept went from this tiny little straw that, when you get a milkshake and you can't get the ice cream through it, right? To becoming this channel that's big enough for a super tanker. Because that's all God wants to do, right? That's my experience. So it's like, it's funny how it can have these very childish, very constricted ideas of God, old ideas about God, and why not? So that's, to me, broadening and deepening my old ideas around what God should be, or what I think God is. Thanks. Great question, Marissa May, and great name.
John, my friend, you are up.
Thanks, Alice. Marty, thanks for a great share tonight. My question, what stood out to me, and I may be misquoting, but when you mentioned, looking at step 11 as a discipline rather than, just a source of inspiration, can you elaborate on how you practice it as a discipline, and I guess give me some advice on it?
Yeah, I practice it as a discipline by doing it, right? Whether I want to or not, whether I feel like it or not, whether it's convenient or not. It's kind of like, I'd love to say I have real discipline going to the gym, but I don't. But I know people who do. And I see that they go to that gym, rain or shine, cold or hot or whatever, but they're there doing it. And as a result, they look amazing. Yeah. Right. And so, when I'm doing that with my spiritual practice, day in and day out, whether it's sunny, whether it's windy, whether it's, whether I feel like it, whether I don't feel like it, setting my alarm, to be really, really early, a lot earlier than I need to be awake so that I have time to do this, and not only just enough time, but plenty of time, right? If you wanted to come to my house and talk to me about something that was really important to you, I would make sure you had plenty of time, right? And so when I want to spend time with God because there's something really important I'd like to either hear or say to God, I want to make sure there's plenty of time. No rush. It's kind of like if I'm rushing to get through my prayer and meditation, I've already missed the point.
Marty, I want to thank you for a beautiful evening. Thank you for coming here all the way from Buda, Texas. And John, it's back to you.